Welcome to NECAFS 2023. I'm Chris Callahan with the University of Vermont Extension, the director of NECAFS. It's really, really, really great to be back together with everybody in person here this year. Appreciate everybody's patience and flexibility as we figure this out every year, and appreciate everybody's involvement and active engagement in being part of what we do in the annual meetings every year. I wanted to start just by welcoming you, but also just have a little bit of open sharing, reflection. And there are two roaming mics. Billy Mitchell has microphone 1, and Andy Chamberlain has microphone 2. And we're going to split it down the middle of the room. Andy's going to try to cover this half, and Billy's going to try to cover that half. I'm curious to know what people hope to get out of the annual meeting this year. And we're going to start with this half of the room. Anybody who has something to share. And to sweeten the deal, I have prizes. Good response. All right. The first prize for this half of the room is a gift card to the barbecue place, Bear's Barbecue. So maybe that's an incentive for somebody to tell us what you're thinking about and hoping to get out of the NECAFS annual meeting this year. This half of the room. We got Mary Choate in the back.
Yeah, when I saw the...
Oh, give it 1 second. So that's microphone 2.
Is it on? Nope. I'll just talk loud.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. When I saw the program and saw how you set it up with lots of discussion groups, I was very excited because we learned so much from each other and different experiences and different problems and different solutions, and getting us all together to talk about that I think will be very, like a real enriching activity around how we move forward with food safety on farms.
Thanks, Mary. I just need to check my notes here for a second. Let me get my glasses out. Did anybody eat at Bear's Barbecue last night? Did anybody stick around for trivia? Come on, MDAR was there. There was a team called NASDA, which sounds a lot like NASDA. Well, Team Topo Chico came in third. So, anybody from Team Topo Chico have anything they want to share?
What Chris did not just say is that the cleaning category actually put us over the edge. No joke. Hey, so I am really excited. I'm relatively new to the region. My name is Donna Clements with the PSA. And I attended last year's annual conference that was remote. But I am super excited to meet a lot of people in person and just have those conversations over breakouts, over breakfast and everything. So that's what I'm really excited to get out of the meeting.
Thanks, Donna. Other thoughts? Yeah, we can get a mic up to you. Billy, can you bring a mic up? Oh, so we're going to be mic number...
I win.
2. Oh.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm with Connecticut Department of Agriculture. So we have a relatively new team for the Produce Safety Program, and I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you guys and learning from your experience. So please come up and say hi to Connecticut over here.
Thanks so much. We have fair number of new faces this year. In this meeting, we've come to realize one of the big values of this meeting is just a chance to actually meet people that you don't get to meet in person often. So, welcome.
So my name is Chuck Saba, and I'm employed by ORIS, which is an organization for immigrants and refugees' success. And my job specifically is farming food safety. This is my first time with a nonprofit, which is very interesting. I've only been with the company 3 weeks, but I come from the restaurant industry, high-powered executive, and I'm not going to get into everything, but bottom line is that I had an epiphany and said, I'm not doing this stuff anymore. I want to help people, and that's what I'm doing. I came here to network with people, to meet people in the area so that I know who I can hit up for favors or information or anything else. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything you'd like to share? That's great. Thank you all for... Sorry, Aaron.
New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. I'm only here to visit with all my old friends and meet my new friends.
Well put. Well put. So, Mary, I will get you the gift card, and for our USDA sponsors, no grant funds were spent on this. And Donna, you get the Dogfish Head Brewery sunglasses in a beer koozie sunglass holder. So, these are winnings from trivia. So, go team Topo Chico. So let's set the stage a little bit. Like I said, we have quite a few new people for whom this is their first NECAFS annual meeting. Show of hands, who's new to NECAFS? It's really great to have you here. Thank you for being here, and welcome. I think you will find that this group is pretty darn inviting and welcoming, and I hope people do drop by and say howdy. Why does NECAFS exist? NECAFS exists to enhance produce safety and preventive controls, training, education, and outreach among small, medium-sized farms and small producers in the Northeast. It's pretty simple, right? But I was listening to a podcast recently, an interview with former First Lady Michelle Obama, and she said something that I think was really, really compelling. She said, just because something's simple doesn't make it easy. And I think that's what we're confronted with, and that's why, I find this meeting to be so useful and important, because some of the hard work happens right here in the next 2 days, where we talk with each other, share what's challenging, hopefully share some successes, make some connections so that we can help each other in between meetings, and move things along, make some progress, enhance produce safety and preventive controls. So how have we been doing this? This may look like a familiar slide if you've been to NECAFS before. These are our guiding principles for NECAFS. Our goal is restated here. It gives you a sense of who we are, who's in the room. Importantly, from the get-go, NECAFS was founded to make sure that we included regulatory partners, educators, researchers, industry representatives, other professional associations and organizations. We really, truly have been guided by making sure this is integrated and collaborative, and we remain a bit unique in that among the regional centers, but it's something we're very committed to and actually quite proud of, and it is sort of the foundational thing that has led to what success we can claim as a group. So that really feeds into the design of this annual conference and the program. It's in no small part thanks to Elizabeth Newbold's magic and hard work. Tremendous amount of work goes into something that appears simple on your table there, the program. The agenda is very intentional. It's based on a lot of input from a lot of different voices, some loud, some not so loud. But our intent is to make this useful for everybody in the room. And to that end, we will have evaluations at the end of the meeting, and we really, really, really need your feedback. It's important to what we do as NECAFS, and it's important to what we do collectively. So we started as a small group that got together in Amherst, Massachusetts in 2015. And this was really driven by some observations, even just in a few states working together, that there really was a need for some more collaborative framework to address issues around produce safety. And that initial meeting was small. It was relative. I think it was half a day. It was maybe 6 or 7 people. And it really outlined the framework that we still use today for NECAFS. The reason I always bring this up is because I think really good things can start very small, and that this is one of those cases. This really was a pretty. This was a $4,000 grant that enabled a group to get together and do a little bit of planning. And it really provided a framework or a foundation for building something much bigger and more impactful. The reason I bring that up is we're going to have conversations over the next 2 days, several of them in the form of breakout groups. And I think it's important to remember that every idea that you have, no matter how small you think it is, share it with the group. These are going to be small breakout groups, tables of 5, tables of 6. The intent is to make sure it's an environment where you're free to share, where the trust can be developed very quickly among a group of people you may not know. And let's hear those ideas. Let's hear what's challenging you. Let's hear what's gone well that others might be able to leverage. Small things can become great. Where are we in the overall framework for FSMA implementation? We are one of 4 regional centers that are spread out across the country regionally. This graphic is a little bit out of date because I believe all 4 regional centers at this point are funded by USDA. But our job is to just deliver on that goal that we've set of enhancing education outreach in support of produce safety and preventive controls. I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth, I think, at this point.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Let's try again. Hi, good morning. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Chris. So I want to invite the NECAFS team up on the stage. And so Chris mentioned my name, but I am not the only person who, come on up, guys, is responsible. And a lot of these, we're in person now for the first time after a couple years. So if you haven't met any of these folks virtually, now is the time to meet them. So in the last couple of years, we have really tried to execute the activities that have been articulated at the annual meeting. And a lot of what that meant was that we needed additional staff. We thought in sort of the early days that there would be people in the region who would say, oh, you know what, I want to do some extra work, and I want to do the things that you've talked about at the annual meeting, and we learned that that wasn't actually happening in reality. And so if we were going to take forward the things that were discussed and decided on at these meetings and collectively as a region, we needed to hire some staff. So over the last couple of years, 2 years, we have been very fortunate to hire 3 full-time, 100% dedicated to NECAFS. They don't wear other hats. They only wear NECAFS hats, and I'm very thrilled to have the 3 of them up on the screen or on the stage with me. So you can see on the screen, Chris was just up, I'm Elizabeth. Annie joined us a couple years ago and focuses on preventive controls. Sean, about a year and a half ago, first in a part-time capacity and then came on full-time. And Sean focuses on hydroponics and aquaponics. Oops. And then Anna, most recently, and Anna is doing a lot of lit reviews into existing produce safety research in order to summarize that and make it accessible to our network. And a lot of the work is done by them. You get emails from me, but they're in the background, and I really appreciate all the hard work that they do and the outputs that you've started to see coming. So I'm now going to turn it over to them. They're going to give you updates on the projects that they're working on individually. So who's first? Okay. So the slide is just forward is the green, red is back, and then that one's a pointer.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all in person. And so many new faces. I'm glad I'm not the only one. So I'll start with the first project that I worked on as a NECAFS employee. This is on produce safety in hydroponic and aquaponic operations. At the 2019 annual meeting, there was a need expressed, and this need was the highest priority to develop hydroponic and aquaponic produce safety guidance, not only for on the farm, but also for regulatory and educational people, so that everyone can sort of start from the same page. So over the last almost 2 years, we've developed this set of 5 topic-based fact sheets. So they're not comprehensive. They simply guide the reader through the considerations that they would take in implementing produce safety in these specific types of systems. So we're in the final stages of revision on those, and they'll be released next month, which is really exciting. To expand and continue that work, we applied for an FSOP grant that was awarded last year. So for the next 3 years, I don't expect you to read all this, but the point is we'll continue to work in this area, and if you'd like to be involved, please send me an email. So zooming out beyond hydroponics and aquaponics, just to produce safety more generally, the CIFSAN ORSA, specifically Socrates, who's here in the room, I think, and Mariana Solomodis, requested us to submit a proposal that would form a regional produce safety collaborative project. So the aim of this project is to establish a regional research consortium that will coordinate sampling of production and handling environments in the entire region. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the behind the scenes for this because I think it's important to talk about how we organize these things. So FDA requested the proposal from NECAFS. We receive funding, and then we work with university partners to figure out the project activities and how we're going to go about that. And they've been really instrumental in figuring out the methodology, agreeing to all the different lab products that we're going to need, those types of things, so that the data will be directly comparable to one another. And then they use their connections with farms in order to form relationships where they can go on farm and sample. They have trust, mutual trust, and the farmers will eventually get some outreach and some guidance based on the results of these sampling. So what are we sampling for? A lot of things. FDA requested that we look for several different types of pathogens. These include bacterial, protozoa, and viral pathogens. And then based on the specific type of production environment, our lab partners also decided to look at other indicators, including, you can see the list. So for year 1, we did a season of sampling, and you can see the total numbers of samples and how many farms we visited. And so the idea is that this was sort of a pilot year, and we'll expand the project each year following. And a little bit more on how we broke up the work. Delaware has specific capacity to do viral and protozoan detection. So we had samples shipped from the other universities to Delaware for that process. So for year 2, we're thinking more blueberries, more apples, because these are very specific to the region. But also, will we narrow down the list of target organisms based on the results of the first year and the following years? And that's all from me. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. As you know, I'm Anna, and I'm really excited to be meeting you all this week. This is really exciting for me. The project that I've been working on is our existing produce safety research project. And this was expressed as a need in our past annual meeting, and we developed several different categories of questions that were brought up in the FSMA PSR for growers and inspectors and the like. And so what we are doing is we are looking into these broad categories and looking into the existing produce safety research that has been published since the PSR came out and trying to create more approachable and digestible ways for growers and everyone to understand these questions and get some more information. And so how we're doing this is we are creating literature reviews, but then also hopefully creating more digestible outputs, as I said. So the first category that we looked at was dropped and drooping produce, which was published this last year in the Journal of Food protection, so you should check it out. And in that literature review, we also created a table summary that looked at the different risks of dropped and drooping produce and created just a more digestible output for the growers to look at easier. What we are working on right now is our animal damage question. So what are the risks that are posed when an animal comes into your covered produce field, and what should growers be thinking about when harvesting their produce? And along with this literature review, we are hoping to create a decision flow chart. So essentially asking those different questions that you should be looking at when an animal comes onto your fields, the different risks that might be posed, and hopefully helping the growers to kind of analyze all of those different risk factors and decide how they are going to harvest that produce going forward. And hopefully we will have preventative and also remediatory suggestions. And then we have 3 other different broad categories that we are going to focus more specific questions in. And those include our surfaces and pathogen survival, wash water, and then also water systems. So if you have ideas and more specific questions that you think would be really helpful for growers to think about, I would love to speak to you about that. All right, Annie is going to present next. How do you go forward?
Hey everybody, Annie Fitzgerald here. Lovely to see you all. So part of my work at NECAFS is with the Preventive Controls for Human Foods Working Group. I support and manage the activities of a group of food safety communicators, those who work in extension, outreach, technical support, helping small and very small processors who are trying to comply with the Preventive Controls for Human Foods rule. Our work is broken up across sort of the 3 key impact areas that we think is most in need for processors. So the first is resources, connecting processors to the materials and tools they need to comply with the rule. In service of that, we have launched a new website, the Processors Food Safety Toolkit, which those of you who are PC people, you'll be hearing about in a lot more detail tomorrow, but you can see our little screenshot here. The next group is awareness, making sure that processors and the greater food safety community are aware of this work and aware of sort of the needs and the desire to meet those needs amongst the community. Our last group is evaluation, and evaluation has been developing a regional assessment for the FSPCA PCHF course so that we can understand the impact of the course and as well build sort of a regional consensus of what people in different areas are seeing from this course and the learning outputs of it. Our last section is not actually a key topic, but instead a project. Our needs assessment is a research into what food safety communicators' perspective is on the preventive controls needs of small and very small processors. I'll be talking about this more later today, but that's sort of a project in progress to better understand these needs and how we can address them. As well, you can see all of our working group members. We are a lively group, so if you're ever interested in getting more involved, we are certainly welcome to hear from everyone here. My next project is on the Food Safety Resource Clearinghouse, which I think probably a lot of you are familiar with. It launched in 2018 and is an online repository for food safety resources. Who would have guessed? So part of the Food Safety Resource Clearinghouse is using Google Analytics. And so what we do is, through Google Analytics, understand how is the clearinghouse used, what needs are not being met in the clearinghouse, and how can we use this data to better improve the clearinghouse. So Google Analytics collects data about how people use the resource clearinghouse. Some of this is the baseline stuff here, like how many visitors, how many pages. I love that in the last year, it has totaled 14 days of visitor time. And I like to think that was just like one person, really intense for 14 days. They learned so much. But so you got this baseline information, right? And that's very helpful to understand. People are using the clearinghouse. It is beneficial, but there's more to it. So the next question is, how do people find what they need and what aren't they finding? One of the things the Clearinghouse does, or really that analytics does, is if you search on the Clearinghouse in the search bar, we know what those search terms are, we know what things people are clicking on, we know when they're not clicking on things, we know are they changing their search term because that one didn't work. So the most popular search word on the Clearinghouse in last year was the word water. Water means a lot of things. Obviously, it's hard to understand what is an information need based on the word water. But what we can tell you is that of people who search the word water, only 31% of them actually click through to a resource. So that other 69%, they're not finding what they're looking for. And that's something we want to investigate. What do people need and how do we get it to them? What we can tell you is that of the 31% who click on a resource, the majority of them, or I guess the largest percentage of them, I should say, go for the resource managing water quality, water testing remediation, post-harvest water food safety Fridays. So that's helpful. We know that that's a good resource and that at least a third of people, at least of the third of people who click on resources, a lot of them want that topic. If you compare it to the next two most popular search terms, which is hand washing and food safety plan, you can see a lot more people in those two areas are clicking on resources. So this kind of highlights that water is a big gap area for us and something that we want to explore further. So then the question is, how do we do it? How do we close these gaps? And there's no one good answer to that, really. We are working on an FSOP proposal to sort of dig into this deeper and build some better solutions. One thing we've already done, and I say we, but really the Western Regional Center has spearheaded this effort, was develop a peer review tool. So to have people look through submitted resources, vet them, and then better promote them on the site to quickly connect people to resources that we know that they'll benefit from. What we need to do next is understand what are the gaps and how do we connect people to the resources that we think they want that they're not finding. So for instance, this table is resources that per view have a really high click rate. It's resources where people look at it and maybe it's not super popular on the site, but people are reading through and they're clicking to the hosting site. They're saying this is something that I think is what I need and is beneficial. So they're not necessarily popular, and for instance, we have this video series on using sanitizers in wash water. So how many people are searching water and this is what they need, but they don't know it because it's not a popular resource on the website? This is the connection that we're trying to make, is things that aren't obvious but are useful and better connecting them for the needs that we're seeing. This goes into site design and accessibility. These are back-end things, user experience and things like that. They're a little bit more technical, but something that we hope to explore and build on in the future. And then there's the sort of final answer, which is maybe for those people searching water, we just don't have what they need. And that's something we can explore, and it opens up a new doorway to creating new resources and new opportunities as well. So this is a very sort of exciting project for me, is just understanding our user information needs and how we can build them better and how we can sort of create new opportunities and connections for our users.
I bet you guys didn't know that Google Analytics was so fun. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to wrap up the remainder of our project. So we have a lot of ongoing projects. This is another project that is complete, but we haven't launched it yet. This is another thing that was identified at an annual meeting in Albany, so it's been a long time ago. But the idea is, if you recall, we used to have a buyer work group meeting at these annual meetings. And the idea was to be able to help with the communication gap between buyers and growers. And what was sort of discussed and determined was this idea of developing a regional produce safety handbook for buyers. And this is an online tool. It's ready to go. We just have to finish things up and get it out the door. This project was led, this is an FSOP project, Food Safety Outreach Program project through the USDA. That was led by myself, Wes Klein, Jen Matthews from Rutgers, and Hans Estrin from UVM. And the idea behind this was to look at the various state audit and inspection information from the states in our region and get that information up onto a website that is transparent and allows people to just glance through all the different landscape, the produce landscape, the audit and inspection landscape across the region, and just enhance communication and availability of language and information. This, we went through a buyer review of this website, and Steve, who's sitting here from Wegmans, was one of the people who was very helpful in going through and giving feedback on the usability and friendly nature of the site, and we made a lot of changes based on that feedback. A lot of our state partners, state produce safety program partners, also went through and looked at it to sort of confirm the nature of the information from their state. And like I said, this is expected to come out later within the next 6 weeks. So you'll be seeing this, more on this coming out. So then we have a couple of other ongoing activities, and I just want to remind people of these. These have been part of NECAF's portfolio since we were first funded in 2016. We have a training support stipend program. This used to get used a lot more. Originally, it was built to support people who wanted to become trainers of the 3 national curriculums, so Produce Safety, Preventive Controls, and Sprout. But then as we saw that people were trained up and there was a really declining need for going to trainings to become lead trainers, we then started getting requests to help support the delivery of educational programming. So this is funding that we have that can be used if you need to pay for food or manuals or travel or whatever to sort of subsidize the cost for your attendees. And this is, again, for the 3 national curriculum courses. And this is still available, although it's dwindling in usage, and I don't know if that's because people have funding, external funding, or people aren't remembering that this is available. So I'm mentioning it so people remember that this is here. We have a national water lab map. This is another tool that we developed. It's national in nature, but if you go to it's go.uvm.edu/water lab map, and what it is it has 607 labs listed, and these are all the labs who can complete one of the FDA-approved water testing methods for agricultural water. And this is a map. All of the labs on there have been vetted, so they all fill out a Google form and confirm the information, so everything on that map is accurate. And the idea is that you might have a grower in New York who's looking for a lab, but maybe a lab in Vermont is closer to them than driving, 3 hours across the state. And so this map is here, and it shows all these maps across the nation. So people, for example, somebody in Western New York might actually go to Ohio, right? So you don't need to go to a lab in your state, but that's there. And it's very popular. We have over 27,000 views on the map. And that's there. And like I said, that information is verified with those labs, so it's up to date. The other thing that we do is we have pre-post tests, and this is for the Produce Safety Alliance grower training. And when people use the training support stipend program, they send us pre-post test data. And you can see this is the pre-post test data from the past year. And you can see that it's hard to see on here, but there's let me turn around. In the middle. So the pre-16.5 is the score on the pre-test, 20.8 is on the post-test. So you can see a change in knowledge across the region on our pre-post tests. Okay, and then the last thing I want to mention, we have some upcoming work. We are working with the Produce Safety Alliance to launch a national long-term look-back survey to people who've produce growers. So both those who have taken the produce safety grower course, but also those who have not. And the intent of this look-back survey is to assess change in behavior, what have people done since attending the training, confidence, what do they need help with doing next, continuing needs, so what are some of their continued obstacles, and then costs. Looking at, okay, you've gone through, you've implemented practices either to be in compliance with the rule or for other reasons. Maybe it's market access, maybe it's your personal commitment to food safety. What have your costs been? And we'll look at that on a national scale. And like I said, we're working with the PSA on that, and we expect that survey to go out in February or March. Okay, so Chris is next.
So somebody was asking me over coffee earlier what number this meeting is. Like, how many times have we done this? And I didn't. 7, Elizabeth says. So it's 7. It's our 7th meeting, at least for some of us being together, which is pretty wild to think about. You know, way back in 2017, when we didn't know what was going on with water, right? So what should we expect over the next 2 days? I channeled my inner Ross Perot for this slide. I have a chart. How many people know who Ross Perot is? Or was? Yeah. Okay. All right. That's reasonable. Need to do a pre-post on the jokes. So last year, and actually every year at NECAFS, you know, there's one of the reasons we get together is to do what I'd call a collective situational assessment. What's going on? What are we seeing? And a lot of that comes in the form of inspectional observations, which the regulatory group will be discussing in their breakout coming up this afternoon. The next thing we try to do in our annual meetings is plan for change. So based on what we're seeing and based on the challenges that we're aware of, what can we do about it? And then the next 2 things kind of happen in between the annual meetings, when we long for getting back together and having a great breakfast. Thank you, Elizabeth. And really good coffee. I have to say, conference coffee, that was pretty good. And then hopefully support change in practice, some improvement and progress, enhancing produce safety and preventive controls. So that's what we did last year and the year before. Everybody remember? Nobody remembered. We did. I'm telling you we did. It must be true. And here we are now. And I originally drew this as a big circle, and I was like, I don't know, that's going to feel kind of bad, like we're just on a hamster wheel. So going from top to bottom is progress here, okay? The y-axis goes from top to bottom. So today is the situational assessment. It's going to be a regulatory group focused on inspectional and observational findings. They're going to come back to us tomorrow with a summary of that discussion. Meanwhile, there's another breakout group for educational folks who are mainly focused on educational activities. We're going to be talking about learning barriers. And these 2 groups are going to be following a breakout group framework. For the educational group, this is going to be breakouts A and B. And the guides for the breakouts are in your program. Each breakout group, like I said, is about 5, I think max of 6 people, so fairly small groups, and each one has an assigned facilitator. So they'll know who they are, and when you get together, we're going to put 10 cards on each table with a number. And so you should have received an email from me if you're in the educational group for this breakout A and B. You should have received an email from me this morning telling you what group you're in and giving you a link to a Word doc on OneDrive. And that document's supposed to be the guide for the breakout group. So both these groups will come together tomorrow, where we start to plan for change. And we're going to have a regulatory panel and an educational panel talking about some of what has been experienced over the past year and sharing that. And then after those panels, we're going to go into, again, joint breakout groups to facilitate change focused on produce safety. This is in the purple section here. The preventive controls group will be doing their own breakout. So today we have regulatory educational running in parallel. Tomorrow to be produce safety and preventive controls. There are so many ways to slice and dice this group. So we're still figuring it out. And the hope is that we end up with some plans, maybe even some teams or starts of teams or starts of projects that are feasible and focused on some of the important things and some of the challenges that we've identified together. Will they all come to fruition? I hope so, but probably not. But that's okay. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. But let's at least start the conversation and see what we can do. And then we go home, There's probably some continued planning. I don't think we're going to get fully drafted proposals done by the end of tomorrow. But then we go back into some collaborative activity between now and next annual meeting. And we continue to do the work we do every day, supporting growers and processors in changing practice and improving produce safety and preventive controls. This is what I hope you can expect out of the meeting. This is what we planned for, and this is what we've tried to facilitate and provide a framework for. And this really has become the model of NECAFS and what we try to do each year and in support of your own work. When NECAFS was established, we knew right off the bat our job is not to duplicate the work that everybody's doing in their own organizations, in their own states, in their own towns. Our work is to be supportive and facilitative. And so using the annual meeting as sort of a punctuation throughout, each year in support of the work you all do throughout the region is our intent. Okay, with that, I believe Elizabeth is going to do a bit of an overview on the program. Do you want the next slide? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
we can do this together if you want. Sorry, one more thing. Thought it might be helpful to just provide some guiding principles for the meeting, and especially the breakout groups. These are my thoughts, but let's be respectful and trusting of each other. We want to really challenge each other, but also know that we're going to grow together if we're respectful and trustful and open. The other thing is everybody's an expert, right? That's become a bit cliche, but it is true, especially in this case. At the same time, nobody's an expert, right? We didn't figure out water completely, right? If you tend to be somebody who speaks up a lot and drives a meeting, step back a little bit. If you tend to be someone who steps back and observes, step forward a little bit. Speak up. I think it's important for us to celebrate and share successes. There have been a ton. And this is a great opportunity to talk about some of the things you've seen and done since the last time we got together. But let's also be candid about challenges that remain, and let's be specific. Unpack the nuance. That's what the small groups are meant to do. Please take breaks. Elizabeth does an amazing job making sure we're fed and watered. Let's make sure we take advantage of that. Anybody who needs to move, the Riverwalk here is an amazing resource. It's if you go down to the hotel lobby and just go out the steps and go back around between us and the Science Center. That's where the Riverwalk starts. I was out on it yesterday. It's amazing and beautiful. So take advantage of what we have here. These were my thoughts. Does anybody have anything else you'd like to share for making the most out of the meeting? We'll come back to this before breakout groups. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right. So, thanks, Chris. All right. So my job is to kind of get everybody ready for the next 2 days, and then also do some acknowledgments. So I'm going to first quickly just point everybody to their program. I'm sure you have all read it from cover to cover, but if you have not, I do want to point out at the beginning there's a program index and then our funding information, but I'm imagining everybody at this point has found the Wi-Fi information, but if you have not found the Wi-Fi information, it is on the top of page 2, so you can get that there. We also have masks and testing kits at the registration desk if anybody needs them. And for any person who might need to use a privacy room for pumping or otherwise, the set up, room 23, is set up with panels and privacy settings. So if you need that room, you can go in there and use that for both for pumping, but there's also a section that's just if you needed some time away from everybody, you can go in and just take a break. I recognize that this is the first time we're back together after 2 years, and so who knows what people need in terms of personal space that maybe before they were a little bit more comfortable with. Okay, so then we dig into the agendas, and I know that the agendas are confusing, but this is how I did it to make it, hopefully it makes sense. They, first you can see at the top, there's the produce safety regulator and program staff meeting. It looks identical at the beginning of then the next set of agenda, which is the produce safety and preventive controls educator meeting. So if you just find the heading of the meeting that you're in, it'll have all of the day's information. There's breakout group activities in there, which will be used in that educator meeting. Then for tomorrow, we've got the preventive controls and the produce safety work group meeting. Again, with some breakout group activities. After all of that, we will have a poster session this evening. So if you want to see what posters will be presented, the titles and their abstracts are listed here. There's a full list of conference attendees. So if you think, oh, who's at this meeting, and you look through and you want to find somebody, you know that they're here, and you can track them down. After that, Annie gave that presentation on the Clearinghouse Google Analytics report. There's a 2-page summary with some more narrative in there. So if you really want to spend some time looking at that information, it's there. And then at the end, there's some information about restaurants in Hartford. So we will be serving lunch, but dinner is on your own. So this will give you a sense of what's sort of within walking distance. The information about the park, the river walk that Chris mentioned, is in there on the last page, and then just some other information about places where you can get coffee. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of what's in their program so that you can reference it as needed. Okay, and I know that people are probably looking at their agenda and saying, you were supposed to be done talking at 8:45, but we build in a lot of buffer time, so we are right on time, actually. And I want to first thank USDA and NIFA for the funding for the work that we do. This is not possible without the support of the FSOP program, and Jody is here, so I'm thrilled to have her, and the support from USDA, which is now we're in our third cycle of funding for NECAFS. Next, I'd like to thank the PI team and the staff of NECAFS. Betsy Bin and Luke Laborde and Amanda Kinchla are part of the PI team for NECAFS and are instrumental in sort of giving overarching strategic and guiding long-term guidance to the work that we do. I'd like to thank the Regulator One-Day Planning Committee. All the Produce Safety Program regulators and program staff will be going next door for their meeting, and I would like to thank that group of regulators from the region for helping to plan that very thorough and helpful and very interesting agenda. Next, the PC work group. These were on the slide earlier, but these folks do an enormous amount over the course of the year in leading that work and helping to guide. Wow, this thing just jumps by itself. Helping to guide the work that Annie does, and I would like to give a shout out to them. Last, I would like to thank the breakout group facilitators. We have a lot of breakout groups planned for today and tomorrow, and a lot of people who volunteered. We have several student volunteers from the University of Massachusetts and from Connecticut, and I would like to thank them. Are they in the room? Can they stand up, my student volunteers? Oh, they're shy. But they will be helping with note-taking. They've helped with registration. They will be helping with a lot of the activities, and I really appreciate them coming and helping. And then I'm just going to leave this here as a bullet, and people can self-identify if they would like to, but I know that each year we have people who retire over the course of the year, and so this may be their last annual meeting, but I want to thank those people for their service and input and contributions to our work. And I don't know if there's anybody who wants to self-identify or if I should call. Well, he's shaking his head. But I would like to thank Wes Klein. So if you don't know, Wes Klein is from Rutgers. He's sitting in red. He has glasses. But Wes, I think, was part of that initial group that Chris talked about in Amherst, Massachusetts, and has been a friendly, supportive, and positive force in the NECAFS network over the last 7 years. And so I know that you may be retiring, but maybe you'll come back as a consultant, and we'll see you next year anyway. But I just want to say thank you. So, okay, and with that, we are all set to now take a 7-minute break, and we will come back to this room for state program updates and introductions. So take a 7-minute break and then come back here. Thank you.